Hello, everyone. All right, I'm just going to refresh here and make sure, as usual, that we are live in the group. Let's make sure. Hello. Okay. I'm so sorry, everyone. We have a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're here, and I am so happy to be doing this wild chat with you all. And I know there have been some new members recently, so I just want to do a quick explanation of what a wild chat is. So we do these 3 times a month, and twice I try to bring in a guest, to someone who knows much, much more than me. And it's kind of selfish because I get to learn, but I also get to share with you guys. So on a wide range of topics, but we really try to stay in sort of the creative vein of out of the box, out of the chair and outside. So if you have any desire to see anyone on the wild chats, please put it below in the comments so I can get better at knowing what you all need and what you all want. But today we're joined by Sarah Pounders of kidsgardening.org. And the kidsgardening.org is an amazing organization, and they do so much, everything. And their main focus is working with kids in the garden, but I feel like they just are even, much bigger than that. It's like they do grants, they do research, there's webinars, they're just, so you could explore. The website's wonderful, and there's just so much content there. So I will put links to everything that I mentioned in the chat today, but specifically, Sarah is here today to talk about creating and exploring pollinator gardens with kids, which I think is a really exciting topic. It's funny because like right now, there's snow. We just got a ton of snow. I don't know if it looks outside your window, but it's just blanketed. But I'm still in the mode, the pollinator mode. They're all waking up, even though they're blanketed in snow right now. So I feel like the gardening season is upon us, and this is a great topic for right now. But I want you, if you would, Sarah, just share a little bit. I know you've been doing this for you have so much experience with this. So please tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you to kids gardening, and just what brought you to just gardening in general and gardening with kids.
Sure. Well, I grew up in a gardening household, so I came by it naturally, I guess. And I started into the education end of it when I went off to college, and I realized not everyone knew about gardening. It kind of shocked me because I just thought it was a way of life. And so I just wanted to kind of share it with everyone. And then I ended up falling into working with kids. And I think it was just because it was so rewarding, because to get them while they're young and impressionable, and to really start young so that they then understand it later in life and appreciate it and value it. So I got tired of trying to deal with the adults, and I want to win the kids over before they get too old. And I've been working. Yeah, so I've been working with youth gardens for about 20 years now, and schools and botanical gardens, so both formal and informal education through extension offices. And then I also have my own children now that we garden at home. So
wonderful. And that's so special. So special when you can take your work. There's that connection there.
And it's very different when you're doing a teaching garden versus a home garden.
Oh, yes. That's what's so amazing about gardening, though, right? Is that it's so reflective of the individual family or the classroom or even the person. I love the identities of the gardens. I love that aspect of it.
And it's so flexible. That's one of the things I like too. You don't have to do a lot of planning necessarily. There's always something to learn out in the garden. And sometimes you learn, you end up teaching about something that you totally didn't intend to teach about.
Oh yeah, that's my every day. Well, great. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you so much for being here. I was just so excited when you agreed to come on. So let's just get right into it, because I know we don't have a ton of time. So let's just start a little bit at the basics. What, in your mind, differentiates a pollinator garden from, say, a regular vegetable garden? What does that mean, pollinator garden, to you?
Well, specifically a pollinator garden, you're planting something to attract pollinators. So that would be bees, butterflies, beetles, flies, a few different bird species that'll be pollinators. In some areas of the country, that's bats for night blooming
Mhm.
plants, like in desert areas and that kind of thing. So basically, it's planting specifically for them. For a vegetable garden, some of the vegetables that we use do rely on pollinators. But they don't bloom long enough. They don't have enough diversity. So a pollinator garden is really about providing all the things for habitat that the pollinator needs. So you have to provide food, shelter, and water. And food is important because it needs to be something constantly in bloom. So in a lot of our yards, and especially vegetable gardens, they bloom once and they start producing. The blooms aren't constant. There's not enough of them to maintain
Okay.
a population. So that's really the main
Right.
difference is you need something in bloom constantly. So a pollinator garden kind of has phases of
Mhm.
providing that food for them.
I love that idea. I want to think and talk about that, the phases idea, because I think that is a huge differentiator. And in terms of how that's then reflected in how we interact with that type of garden. I think that's really interesting. So, okay, I just, I'm starting a pollinator garden for the first time, and I see all these seed packs, like the pollinator seed packs. Do I just go and grab one of those in my local grocery store? And is that the right way to start? I mean, I think it is hard to know. How do you go about it? It seems overwhelming. Like, are there certain things you want to attract? Is it safe to just put random seeds, out like that? What do you think is the best way to start? Is there a planning stage that you like to do with kids? How do you like to approach this?
Well, I tend to plan and kind of look at what I plan to attract. You can also, I mean, just in general, wildflowers, native plants, those are going to be your pull. So just if you're looking at it, if you want to just, look at a broad and not do the research. But if you want to do the research, there are some wonderful guides that were put together by the Pollinator Partnership, and their
Um,
website is pollinator.org.
okay.
Just and they have regional planting guides, and I can't remember how many. It seems like it's 20 or so different regional guides, and so you can find your area of the country. And in there, they have a listing of the different pollinators for your area and the plants that they need. So, and they have it divided into annuals, perennials, shrubs, trees, so you can get all sorts of suggestions. So it's really a very comprehensive resource. So that's what I used when I was picking out for our own pollinator garden that we have in our yard. Is I used the listing from the Pollinator Partnership regional
Okay, that's
guides.
that's that's wonderful. Well, I'll definitely put that up, and I know about them. They're so, oh my gosh, they have just such amazing resources for this
Yes. Mhm.
specifically, and really, like you said, comprehensive. I mean, this would be a great place to start. So in terms of bringing the kids in, at what point do you like to bring the kids in? I mean, I'd imagine that probably would depend on the setting and the event and things like that. But let's say for our purposes, because I feel like a lot of the people in outschooling sort of do have a longer time span. They're able to work with a certain group of kids, a specific group of kids. So at what point do you say to bring the kids in? And
Right at
how to introduce them to the process.
right from the beginning.
Okay.
Let them help you pick out the plants. Let them help you decide look up the different pollinators you're going to do. We just put in a pollinator garden at our house last year. So this was something we just experienced. And we all decided what we were going to plant it. We went and bought the plants together. We have a very shady yard. So we have our pollinator garden on wheels. And so we rotated around our driveway during the day where the sun is. It's a lot of extra work, but we have very little sunlight. And so they helped put the soil in, they helped do all of the plantings, and then they got to watch everything grow. It ended up mostly being butterfly attractors. Is what we ended up with, more of a butterfly garden than just a general pollinator garden. But it started out as a pollinator garden.
That's great. I love that you were wheeling around and you really learned the
Yes.
sun's movements that way.
Yes, that's the only way we can get them to grow well.
Have you fed the dog? Have you moved the butterfly garden? That's great. Well, how old are your children, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. My daughter is 8. Well, actually, she just turned 9. Sorry, she's 9.
Oh,
And my
okay. What a great
and my
age.
son is 5.
Oh, nice. Great ages to
Yeah.
explore. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot too because, sometimes my daughters are 1 and 4, and sometimes they have difficulty sort of with and I don't like to approach it like this anyways, like, oh, the bees are dying, so we need to plant X, Y, Z. And I know that's not what you're saying, but with younger kids, whenever I approach my daughter with using games, I think it helps her a lot. So I love the idea of getting them interested from the beginning. Maybe even for us, playing. My oldest daughter is incredibly physical. She's just running constantly. I had to tell my husband before we started, like, no running, just no running, because you could just hear it so loud. But yeah, just I've been thinking about that a lot, ways to get her active. Playing games to introduce the idea and things like that. And have you seen something like that work with the younger kids?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, both of my kids are at very different stages and of what
Mhm.
they're doing.
Right.
So even with my 8-year-old, I don't think we go into depth about like why the
Right.
pollinators are so important just yet, as much as we've just talked about the different habitats.
Mhm.
And for her and just her personality, what we did with the garden is she would take pictures along the way of all the different stages. So we were actively watching the different well, for this we had monarch butterflies come through, so we watched all the different stages, and some kids might want to do journals, but my daughter wanted to take pictures of each stage, and then we kind of put
That's
together a
great.
little page on our home page that showed the different stages of the butterfly. We even had a couple of videos and stuff. We got to watch one wrap himself into his chrysalis, which was really cool. It was the first time I had ever gotten to see that. And now my son, who's 5, he really his favorite thing is, he's not as much as of the gardener as she is, and so I just kind of meet him where he's at. His favorite thing to do is to collect seeds, and so that's it's great. There's lots of those plants do have produce a lot of seeds. Like we had morning glories, so that was his job. Is he like goes through and collects the seeds and we save them, and that's the next year, and that's kind of his favorite thing about the garden. So he likes to pull things apart. So.
Great. That's
It,
great though. That's an aspect of it. That I feel like there is something for everybody within the construct of the pollinator garden. And
Absolutely.
even animal or children seem to be more drawn towards animals than plants. I mean, when they're younger, I just feel like they have a natural affinity towards animals, and
Well, they change
choosing.
faster.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and they love imitating. You'll see a child, I think, imitating an animal more than you'll see them a plant.
Yes.
Unless it's just accidentally. um, but having them choose, I think, one insect or one like, do they want to make a butterfly water? Do they like butterflies? Do they like bats? Do they like bees? And there's just so many ways into this. So that's one part I really, really love about it. And as we're talking, if you all have, there's something specific, like in terms of your the age of your child or characteristics, and one way, if you have a question about how we can help, you know, draw your particular child in, let us know, or any question in general. And just put the questions right underneath the live video, and we'll definitely get to them. Oh, and it looks like somebody, Megan, it looks like it's not working for you. She probably can't hear me then, but if you can't see the video, but you can hear the audio, then hit shift refresh on your browser or change your browser. So yes, I'm so sorry about that, and hope maybe I can get Megan to be able to see. So okay, let's see what else. So I think this is really, let's see. Yes, the unique. So how is this? Let's get a little bit more into why do you like working with pollinator gardens with kids? Like, what kind of dynamic opportunities does this type of garden present?
Well, first of all, I like to be able to explain, the importance. Like a third of our food comes from is reliant on pollinators. So I do like to be able to point out that these are the little creatures, because a lot of times kids kind of get nervous around bees, especially, or wasp, and so like just pointing out how important they are, I think is a great stage to reach them at. Another thing that I really like is obviously the movement and an engagement of it, and adding the aspect. Another thing I really like about pollinator gardens is that a lot of them are the native plants and they take less care. They take less water. They're usually better adapted for your environment. And so, as much as I enjoy doing vegetable gardens with the kids, and teaching them that part of the food cycle, it's also really great to have some gardens that if you need to go away for a weekend, they're not all going to die on you. Or, it's just kind of a little more environmentally friendly talk, and you get to introduce that aspect of things that are, and you can plant them, right in the ground. They're quite honestly can be a little bit easier, both with maintenance and, care than some of the vegetable gardens. So I kind of like that. Kind of a
That's
lazy
wonderful.
gardener solution.
Kittens, kids, again, kittens are really hard. They can be very hard on the garden. So I think it deters a lot of people from, doing vegetable gardens because, oh, my kids are too little. They're just going to destroy it, that type of thing. And I have experienced my kids, my oldest now, or she's 4, but before, like a couple of years ago, we went through the whole process and she did ruin. She was experimenting and it was good, but it took its toll on the garden. So I think it's wonderful to be able to have something that's a little bit more hardy.
Yeah.
Something that's gonna last. It's good for parents.
Yes, it is. It has so it's a nice, that's a nice benefit of it too. So along with the teaching aspect, but
Right. Yes. I love that too, the angle of, I was thinking about this, what do they like to eat too? And talking to, from that, I think you mentioned that, like, talking about it from that angle, because I know
yes.
it's chocolate. I think there's only one tiny little fly. I think it's that is the only thing that will pollinate the chocolate flower, the cocoa flower. So that's so fascinating. Like the kids can connect, you can eat chocolate in the garden. And, so my point is that, maybe they're not that excited about squash, but there's something that, a pollinator pollinates, that some kind of food that is more tasty. They're sweet, right?
Well,
so
like all of your fruit trees pretty much rely on
right.
pollinators. So if you have apple, peach, down here oranges, all of the fruit trees rely on the pollinators. So that's every kid loves those. So
Right. And yeah, that's a lot more exciting, I think, to some kids than, the peppers.
yeah.
The green.
Probably so. Or tomatoes. Kids aren't even that excited about tomatoes. Somewhere that happens when we become adults. So
Yeah. Oh, I know. I always plant Aunt Molly's ground cherries with the kids because it's the one plant I know is going to be my absolute winner. That transformed their experience. Just having that one thing that they can identify, or even with the pollinator garden, if it's a flower, if it's a color they like, just having, if they love purple or they love orange, it's just really exciting for them to connect something that they can connect with. And that's why I love this idea, and I really want to focus on it more this year, of the pollinator garden, because it just seems like there's so many ways, like I mentioned this, for the kids to enter into it. And the phases. So do you find different kids being, we talked about different aspects of it, how they're connected to different aspects, but different phases or stages of it.
with kids?
Yeah, do you see them being excited about, what are, in your mind, are there specific phases that you can specifically point to, where you see the kids kind of being attached to these different?
Yeah, there definitely are. And we have a great resource. I'll just kind of briefly go over it, but a great resource on our website. It's called the Parents Primer. And it kind of goes into detail, step by step, for each I think it's under our toolbox for each age group. But like for younger kids, they just want to explore. When my son's first garden was basically a pot of soil. We didn't even put any plants in it. He didn't want to put any plants in it. It was his choice. That's what he chose. So, and then after that, he just wants to pick things, interact with things. So really not until they're getting much older do they really want to do something more specific and care. And then we get into the tween ages is really when you want to step up the responsibility. And, it's really till then that they're really very, fourth or fifth grade that they really want to focus on kind of the harvest kind of aspect of it. Before that, you want to just keep it as the exploration of it and the fun aspect. So, but
Right.
it definitely they move through, and kids have different interests too. And that's one of the things about gardens is you have to kind of figure out what each child's interest is and what they're really they're interested in. So, and the nice thing about doing that at home or in a smaller setting is that you, versus like a big school garden, is that you can allow that individuality, which I think is great.
Yeah, you can slow it down too, I think, the whole process.
Right. Or speed it up,
Yeah.
depending on their personality.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, speed it up. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, and I like the idea of these gardens too, because yes, you are looking for different stages in a vegetable garden, but for kids, it just sometimes, like we're saying, speed it up. Sometimes it's more exciting to see progress in the form of a butterfly visiting. That is a
Right.
very specific moment, for them, as opposed to, okay, wow, it got a little bigger, it got a little bigger, it turned a little bit more green. I mean, it's very exciting for me, but I can see how, it would be those more definitive moments. I think it lends itself really nice.
Yes, it does. Definitely. Definitely. So much more action. We had a lot of monarch caterpillars. Like at one point we had like 50 on all of our plants. And so the kids got to watch all of their stages. We even brought a few inside for a little while so that they could watch them a little bit closer. We had it in a little pet carrier kind of looking thing that we would put them back out afterwards. But so lots of fun.
Yeah, that's fun. So let's see, what else was I thinking? I just have so much going on in my head. I'm like, I want to get all the information I can out of you. Okay, so let's see. I'm looking at my questions. So I ask this question every time because I think it's really important to kind of have something that you can look out for. Where do you see along the steps or the process where you could run into like a roadblock where parents or educators or just like something, not negative, not to go wrong, but where you could just see it stopping progress?
Oh, I think one of the tricky things with gardening is, quite honestly, there's things that happen that are out of your control as far as weather, um, uh, animals come and eat all of your plants. There's a lot of things that can seem like discouraging factors at first. Depending on where you live, if you're in a city, vandalism potentially. So that's kind of one of the challenges that can happen with a garden. Or maybe you have a neighbor that decides to do pesticides and it kills off your pollinators, because that's one of the main things of the pollinator garden. You have to avoid all pesticides. When I was an extension agent, I used to get calls where people would find their plants dead and think that their neighbors have been spraying. So there are things that can happen like that. But the best thing to do is just try to get a good base for you. Use good soil. Find the best plants you can find to buy. And even those things, when they do go wrong, you really do learn a lot. When I had a class once, and they all wanted for some reason they all wanted to plant the plants upside down. So as a little group of boys that wanted to see what happened if they planted them upside down. And instead of I could have tried to explain to them why, and I did a little bit, but I finally let them plant upside down. And then they got to see what happened. And so they got to see what happened to their plants versus some of the other groups that planted them right side up. And, so I kind of struggled with that because I was like, well, they're not going to be successful. Is this a bad experience for them for me to do this? But finally I was like, okay, I'll let them try it. Go for it. And they did. They had their pansies planted upside down.
Oh my gosh,
So.
I love that. That's amazing, because maybe a roadblock is actually that you're too, not you, but I mean, general, you could be potentially too rigid,
Right.
too stuck on the pollinator garden idea, and and then that's where the stress enters in, is when those expectations aren't met. So
Right.
I love this idea of adjusting expectations.
Yeah, because it's
And
really
kind
a
of
learning
going with,
experience as you go.
yep.
So
It really makes.
don't feel like you as the adult has to know everything. I think that's another thing that I always talk to educators and parents about. Don't feel like you have to know it all and do it perfect, because it's really a learning process with your kids. And, even after all
Right.
the classes and stuff that I've done over the years, I still have to chuckle at some of the things that happen in our garden. So.
That's good. Okay, that's good to know. I feel better now. Oh, great. Well, and I think that the lesson sometimes is in the concept. So although it is so amazing to have that journey, from seed to bringing those amazing insects, and then to seeing it go away and compost. Although I think the journey is so incredible, if you don't make it through that, just the idea. I know this has been so true for my daughters, of doing something for another creature specifically. Yes, the vegetable garden it does draw other things, and it is good because we're using, healthy seeds and everything. But it is ultimately for us. I would not describe it as a selfish act, but in their mind, we're making food for our family. And yes, we do give a lot of it away and that type of thing. But to have a whole garden, a whole endeavor whose main purpose is to bring, to help, to provide a whole habitat. I think that's incredibly powerful in terms of empathy. No matter if you make it to the finish line, just that idea. So I would say that's one of my top reasons I really want to focus on this year, is because it's a very important for that to be about them. Like, we're not yes, we're connected to that. And we do ultimately, that's an important lesson, but I really want to stress more that it is for them. It's helping some of these endangered species, so I think, I really want to try to convey that to the kids this year.
That would definitely be good. Or just the whole idea that, where we live is where they live too. And so as
Yeah.
we have changed our landscape, we have changed their, home, and I think is another great thing to point out. So trying to make their home back the way it was a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. The word home, focusing on providing them a home for them, helping
Right.
them, like, just basically being a support system for them, the way that they're a support system for us.
Right.
So yeah, these are some powerful gardens. Do you
And
prefer working with kids with pollinator gardens, or vegetable gardens, or do you feel like it's all part of it?
I think it's all part of it. Even we just planted the school gardens at my daughter's school last week, and we put pollinator pots all throughout the garden so that because it was kind of a combined lesson. So I think that you can't necessarily, it's hard to talk about one without the other. So even though most of our vegetable plants are salad plants and don't really need pollinators, we still use it as an opportunity to talk about it. So.
Right. So I love that idea. You had little pods. In like
Pots,
little pots.
yeah, it's like, yeah, container gardens, just because we don't have enough room otherwise because everything either has to be in a raised bed or container on our horrible schoolyard ground. So, but we scattered them throughout so that we could talk about that.
Well, so that brings up a good point. If you have a very small area and there's only, only one or two plants you could do in a very small space. Do you have a recommendation for what would you do if you just have one shot at it, one small little area?
Well, it kind of depends on, well, first what you're trying to attract, but you probably would, for me, for us on our little small plot that we did mostly butterfly plants, and we had milkweed. If you want to do monarchs, you need milkweed. If you have not quite as much sunlight, you might try something like dill. Dill's a great herb that attracts some different butterflies. Zinnias are always very easy. Cosmos, coreopsis. If I have a small plot, I'm just going to go for what I can be most successful with, hopefully, and will be the
Right.
easiest to take care of. So,
And what are those to you, the plants that are the easiest to take care of?
well, some of those that I listed, like
Some of
zinnias,
those, okay.
cosmos, milkweed is very easy as long as you get enough sunlight. It's a I mean, it's a weed, so but it
Yep.
does it can get a pretty big plant. Pentas are another great one. Um, so there's a lot of different things out there. But if you're challenged with sunlight, then herbs are going to be another way to go. So
Okay, right. Yes. That's great too, because then that's sort of a stacking function there.
yeah, yeah, you could also use them to harvest for yourself.
Hmm. Wonderful. So that, what else with that?
Well, and
Shoot,
one
I
thing
got
to think about with the containers is because you would think, well, I'm not really doing much for that many pollinators by having one of just a small container. But there's actually a thing called the National, let me make sure I say all the words in the correct order here. The Million Pollinator Garden Challenge is one of the new things that they've come out with. And there's a link from
okay.
our website also. But the whole concept behind it is that if everybody has a small part of their yard that they dedicate for pollinators. If everyone who had it was in an apartment had a small container garden, if every business had a small area in front of their company where they dedicated, then you've created a whole habitat and that kind of can string along together rather than just having like even if you have a small island in your yard, if your neighbors also have created a home for them, we all link together to work together. So that's kind of another interesting program that I thought I would just mention today. Just the whole concept of working together and making it a community effort um, in addition to a home effort.
I love that idea. That that feels really good. And I feel it feels really doable because it gets sometimes it just gets like, oh, I can't do it because I can't do it right. I don't have enough space. We're only we only have a little, we have a shady balcony, something like that. I think you can do it. And you'll learn a lot from it, just trying it. And it will add, everything you're doing is adding something to the whole.
Right.
So
And
I
you
love
can
that.
register. Their website has a registration where you can like get designated as having your own pollinator um, pocket of pollinator plants for pollinators. So if you wanted to feel like you're a part of a bigger movement.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, I'm definitely going to put that up. That's great. Um, and kids can connect that way. And that's something I love with these gardens is the connections that I've made in terms of where I think there's lots of great places to get your plants. But in Michigan, there are so many native plant societies, and these people are incredible. Like they go, they just go all the places. I love they have such amazing knowledge, and that I love buying from them because you know that it's specifically from your area, our area, and the kids can connect to those people who are selling those, get to know different areas, where those plants are from, things like that. I think there's that social component that is, that is a great part, could be a part of it too. And I'll put up
People love to
our
share their gardens.
Native Plant Society just so people can see what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm sure you all already know, but just I'll put up our Native Plant Society so you can see where we buy our native plants. Okay, great. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about, well, first of all, for everyone who's watching, Sarah has given us the chance to win two amazing resources. One is, and tell me if I get this wrong, but from what I could tell, and this looks amazing, I really wish I could win this book, is Books in Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like it's a collection of activities, garden related activities that are connected to children's books or literature.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that off the book, activity, out of the book activity there that connects. That looks wonderful. So that's what
it has
okay.
both informal and formal activity ideas that are associated with some of the really popular garden-based books for kids.
Okay, wonderful. And then Pollinator Field Journal. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, it's a small resource we put together. It's kind of just to help kids kind of lead through the observation aspect of it, and has some little information about pollinators all along it. And it's something that actually my son carries his around. He has one that he keeps. But the one who tears everything apart in the garden. But he does enjoy his journal, and so it has places for them to do sketches.
Oh, nice. Okay. I feel like that's really useful because if it, seeing it through its stages is, I really feel like that's going to be a part of it. It's just I know I keep stuck on these phases, but I just see it as just such a dynamic journey that the kids can take, and reflected in the journal, especially for older kids. So, okay. So if you comment underneath the video, any comment at all, I will choose a random winner, and you have till Thursday. And Sarah, would it be okay if throughout this week, if people have questions about creating their own pollinator garden, if they could just pop in, and if you wouldn't mind taking a look and seeing if there's any answers, and I'll be in there too.
Sure.
Inside of Outschooling. And then on Thursday, I'll announce the winner of both the Books in Bloom and the Pollinator Field Journal. And yes, I think what else? And then is there anything else that you'd like to share about kidsgardening.org? Like what, just about maybe a resource there? I know you shared some, but I just want to give you a chance to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. We have lots of things on our website. We have activity ideas that are more designed for home gardeners, lesson ideas that are more for educators. We have a lot of just background gardening information that we try to just really pinpoint the most important stuff. And we also, if you're interested in more information from us, we have a monthly e-newsletter and a biweekly blog, so that we're just constantly putting more information out. So if you are more interested in more, you can sign up for either of those. And we also have an email address on there. So if anyone also needed to email us or ask us questions, we're always available for that too. So we want everyone to garden. We want every child to have a garden. That's really our main mission, is that every child has the opportunity to garden during and that's what we try to do.
Well, I love what you guys are doing. And just from our experience here, I can't imagine not having some form of garden, even if it's in the smallest, even if it's in the smallest pot, just having that, it really is so impactful. And I feel like every school should have one. I can't believe our schools don't all have one, because once you have it, you can't believe that you could ever learn without it. There's just every single subject can be connected to the garden. Like everything from math to history, it's all there. So thank you for the work that you're doing and for the knowledge that you brought to this, because it is so amazing to hear, what you're doing. And I really enjoyed having you and really learned a lot. I'm motivated. I'm going to do this. So for all of you out schooling, I hope you start your gardens. If you do, please post your pictures. My daughter wants to make little pollinator wings. So we're going to start out that way and we'll ease into it. So post your pictures and please ask your questions. And Sarah, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I love talking about all of this. So I'm excited that your group is interested in doing this. So it's great.
Um, this is where this is going to be good. We're going to do it.
Excellent.
All right. Well, good night, everyone. And let me know if you need anything, and I will see you all very soon. Okay. Okay. Bye, Sarah. We're going to do the awkward
Bye.
live chat goodbye. Bye.